One and done, never felt so good. What's going on, Broncos country? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to dive into the Broncos running back room and determine what can be done this offseason to upgrade at the position. This will be a series as I examine the team's deepest, darkest flaws, or rather their positional needs heading into the 2025 offseason. My name is Branson, and you're watching Crushing It Season 2. The Denver Broncos ranked 16th in rushing offense this NFL season as they went for 1,908 total yards on 4.1 yards per carry. Now that number is a little misleading, and I touched on this in the previous video. Bo Nix himself accounted for 430 of those yards with 92 carries for 4.7 yards a carry. The running backs themselves, and really just the rushing game as a whole, was incredibly iffy. The rushing offense without Bo Nix accounted for 1,478 yards, and that would have been good for, drumroll please, 31st in the NFL, just above the Las Vegas Raiders. So that should speak volumes to the impact Bo Nix had just with his legs. This video, we are going to do a back-by-back analysis and determine where and how Denver can upgrade the position going into the offseason of 2025. And I'm excited to get into this. Now, first up on the docket in this little discussion is Javonte Williams. Pookie. Our Pookie is missing, okay? He burst onto the scene as a rookie in 2021. I'm sure we all remember that time fondly. 903 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, 4.4 yards a pop. He looked like the running back of the future far and away, and it looked like Denver got an absolute snag in the second round from the Tar Heels. 2022 rolls around. He's still maintaining a high yards per carry at 4.3. And he had 200 rushing yards before a knee injury just completely derailed everything Javonte Williams related. He would come back in 2023, and despite having a career high in carries, he would see his yards per carry fall by 0.7, going from 4.3 to 3.6, and he just wasn't nearly as impactful during that time. He didn't have the same pop or the same burst. He wasn't able to bounce off of guys like we had seen before in pre-injury Javonte. Now, this season, he was penciled in as the starter, but he saw his snaps fall until he was essentially a third down blocker, as he only received 139 carries that went for 513 yards, which is good for a 3.7 average. Now, despite his shortcomings as a runner, he did have his moments as a receiver, and it was actually his best receiving year to date, going for 52 catches and 346 yards. He did convert a good number of first downs for Denver as the season went on, and it felt like he was a reliable enough receiver for Bo Nix this year that he warranted a spot on the field. There was a point in the year, however, that Javonte was basically a tell for defenses, as he almost exclusively came in to block for what felt like a couple of weeks at the time. Now, this season, he graded out at 61.6 on PFF, and he's a really tragic tale of NFL injuries. He was a very promising player whose career trajectory just took like a meteor-sized crater into it after the injury. Now, I'm in the camp that Javonte Williams will not be a Denver Bronco in 2025. Unfortunately, it is a results business, and Javonte just hasn't given the results the Broncos have been looking for. He's a guy that I think can go into a team and be a very, 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 very okay third down back, because he still has the receiving ability, and he can pass block really well. I'm pretty sure that is the reason he was still in lineups over Estimate even kind of later into the year. But based on these last 2 seasons, I don't think he'll ever be more than that, more than a serviceable backup. But regardless, wherever Javonte goes, I hope it treats him well. I truly wish him the best, and I hope he can rebound with whatever team lands him. And if he does,
you better fucking treat him well, I swear to God, if you hurt my fucking Pookie.
Now, next up in this running back room, you got number 38, Jaleel McLaughlin. Now, ever since coming into the league as a UDFA in 2023, Jaleel has basically been the Darren Sproles type beat in Sean Payton's offense. He's quick, he's shifty, he doesn't do the special team shit, so he's not quite Darren Sproles, but he's 5'7", 187, and like I said, he's quick, shifty, he's got good burst. I think that one little swing pass he caught for a touchdown against Tampa Bay is a really good like microcosm of what a Jaleel McLaughlin can do with the football in his hands. He can make guys miss. He can bounce around a little bit. He can use his short frame. Short kings, love him. But he can use that small frame to kind of get wiggly, run around guys. Now, in 2024, McLaughlin was good for 496 yards on 113 carries, with one rushing touchdown. Now, surprisingly, that was a regression from his yards per carry in 2023, where he went from 5.4 to 4.4 in 2024, which is ridiculous. Now, 2023, he goes 76 carries for 410 yards, also one touchdown, and he's never been the biggest receiving threat, as he only had 76 receiving yards on the entire season, like I said, though, with those two touchdowns. Okay, let's keep that in mind. Now, to me, Jaleel's a really good change of pace guy that can come in and provide a little spark when your bell cow running back, let's put a pin on that, needs a break during a game. He has good bursts, like we mentioned earlier. He's a surprisingly good pass blocker for his size especially, where he just kind of throws himself in the way of a guy and has enough, like, muscle or technique to buy Bo Nix an extra second there in the pocket. Now, he is not the best receiver, but I also feel like with the way the offense was kind of ran and the receptions he had, he wasn't in the best position around the line of scrimmage. Like I said, though, he did have the two receiving touchdowns that came in the red zone, and I actually think one of those might have been his longest reception of the year of 11 yards. So, looking at Jaleel going into 2025, like I said, I think he's going to be a good little change of pace back. Throw him in when your bell cow guy, who I presume we're drafting at this point, needs a little bit of a breather. He can come in, still provide a nice little spark, and I would expect him to go for around 550-ish yards in 2025, but we'll have to see if he can improve on his numbers next season. And now, next up, we got a rookie. Well, not really a rookie anymore, is he? Now, the last guy that we're going to highlight in this video is 5th round rookie Audric Estime, which, once again, I guess he's not really a rookie anymore per se. He has completed his first NFL season. Now, while Tyler Beatty and Blake Watson did see a little bit of action, it wasn't really enough for me to warrant mentioning them all that much in this video. Tyler Beatty provided a nice spark at times, kind of in a Jaleel McLaughlin type way, and Blake Watson had a couple of nice carries in one of Denver's games this season, so not a ton that I'm going to mention there. I think they're kind of fringe guys that are going to sit on the practice squad again or find themselves signed to other teams come 2025. Now, what did Audric Estime do with his 2024? Well, the 5th round rookie started out rough as shit. He had a narrative following him around with the whole 2 fumbles on 9 carries thing, and that landed him in the dog house. Man, I tell you, he had fumbles in the Seahawks and the New Orleans game, and he didn't see action for a couple of weeks after that. But when he did, in those subsequent 10 games, he actually played really well with 76 carries for 310 yards, 2 touchdowns on 4.1 yards per attempt. Like I said, pretty solid in those subsequent 10 games where he actually saw action. I feel like we saw some pretty decent flashes from Estime during that time. Now, given his 5'11", 227 frame, you'd think he'd use his power a little more. But I have a weird theory that those fumbles and him getting into Sean Payton's doghouse kind of scared him off a little bit from really running through guys, because it looked like he was relying more on elusiveness and vision at times this season, which, to be fair, worked pretty okay for him. Now, his rookie season was a little up and down. He had a couple stinker games, but again, given his limited opportunities and just Denver's inability to run the football for some reason, I think he did okay, given everything. Now, the way that I see it, okay, Estime has some interesting potential if he can put everything together. If he can regain that confidence to just bounce off of guys like a goddamn pinball, I think he does have the vision, and I think he's got good burst to make it as a legitimate NFL running back. Now, I think going into 2025, he's penciled, not sharpied, penciled in as the number 3 guy, but I think if he can put everything together, he has a real chance to usurp Jaleel McLaughlin for that number 2 spot. He just has to get out and stay out of Sean Payton's doghouse. And over those last 10 games, not a single fumble, not a single concern. He might be on track to do so once again if he can put everything together. Now, how do the Broncos address this position? Are they confident that Audric Estime will develop, or will they draft a rookie? I'm not sure what they're going to do, but here are a few ideas for Denver to consider going into 2025. Now it's time to examine potential replacements in the Denver Broncos running back room. Now, I'm no draft buff, so the college guys that I look at, I'm going to be using the help of NFLDraftBuzz.com. I will leave that link in the description down below. You can go look at these running backs for yourself and determine whether or not you think they're worth taking. Now, I got 2 free agent running backs that I think Denver could probably get for pretty cheap. Enough, at least, and 4 college guys that I think could be taken anywhere from day 1 to day 3 that I think Denver has a legitimate shot at and we could see taken. Well, with that all being said, let's get into it. So the first guy that we've got up here on NFLDraftBuzz.com is going to be Quinshon Judkins, Ohio State, 6'2", 19. He's got pretty solid measurables, although they're not the best, of course. Decent 40 time at a 4.49, 6 foot 219, so pretty decent NFL size, although a lot of NFL teams are probably going to ask him to bulk up a little bit because I think he has more of a power back profile than people might think. But just running off of his scouting report here, exceptional burst, good balance, good frame, good workhorse back. You can take a heavy workload. Ohio State is a really, really high-level college football program, too, so they're playing the best of the best. They don't like his long speed, okay? They do not like his long speed. It's good but not elite, quote-unquote, to them. Doesn't bounce runs outside as much as they'd like, and apparently he has fumbled lately. Now, everything I've heard about Judkins, I swear to God, he was like all the running back buzz outside of Ashton Jonty for a while. Unless Denver trades up, they are not getting Ashton Jonty. He's pretty much projected everywhere to the Dallas Cowboys. So picking at 20, 19 or 20, wherever they're sitting right now, and maybe this is a little high for Quinshon Judkins. Like I said, I'm not a draft buff. I'm just looking at options here. Quinshon does sound like a pretty solid guy that you could just plug and play into the offense. You might have the Audric Estime type curve where you got to beat the fumbles out of him, almost literally make him hold a ball around training or around the training facility and whatnot. But Quinshon Judkins is definitely a guy that could probably get some late first round to probably early second round picks if I had to really guess. And with that all being said, let's move on to the next guy. Now, Broncos country, if we want to get excited about another potential second-round North Carolina running back, may I introduce you to Omarion Hampton, 6'2", 24.46, 40-yard dash. He's got similar measurables to Judkins, who we just looked at. Again, 6', 220. So not much shorter and not much heavier, but he is a little faster at 4.46. Now we go look at what they like about him. Violent finisher, which is really good to hear. He can fall forward extra couple of yards after contact. That would make him an exceptional goal line back, I think, in this kind of day and age. What else do they like about him? Elite burst when hitting the hole, which is always good to hear. Reliable hands out of the backfield. He's really given me Javonte Williams vibes here. Like, he really, not even with the college, he feels like a guy that can come in and do the things that we like about Javonte Williams. Physical pass protector. Like, look what I'm saying. Now, what they don't like is that he gets a little too upright approaching the line, so he's a bigger target for guys to hit. They don't love his pass protection power or finesse, really just with hand placement and punch timing, just keeping guys out of the backfield. He can get in the way right now, but he just needs to time things up a little better. They don't like that he doesn't use the wiggle stick as much. He just hits people, which honestly, fair enough. They don't love his route tree either. It's just basic check down, swing stuff. Pretty much the work. I think he's a guy that you could definitely look at in, I mean, hell, could be first or second round here, depending on how he is the 2 back on this, so maybe I wasn't looking as highly on him. This could be a guy you see go in the kind of late first round, which is right around where Denver's picking here. So if they don't like any of the backs, or if Judkins and Jonty are off, depending on where those guys are going to go, you could definitely see Denver take a shot on Omarion Hampton. And now our third guy is a guy that I was really intrigued with when I was looking through some of these guys. So let me introduce you to Dylan Sampson, ladies and gentlemen, out of Tennessee. 5'11", 190. He runs a 4.35, 40-yard dash. We go look at his measurables. They're not in love with his height. They are definitely not in love with his weight, but what they are in love with is that sweet, sweet 40 time, and I believe he's going to find his stock shooting up come the combine and pro days when he runs his 40. Now, what did they like about this guy? Elite breakaway speed. Obviously, you're a 4.3 guy. You can absolutely fucking fly. They like his vision. They like his lateral quickness. They like his route running ability. He can bounce off of guys apparently at 190. Quick study, which is good to hear. And he doesn't have an injury history, even though he took a heavy collegiate workload. And again, heavily relying on this website here. I'm not saying I'm some sort of draft pundit. I'm just relaying the message. Again, these guys will be credited. I will leave their articles in the description, okay? Don't shoot the messenger. But, yeah, no, I think he's an interesting guy with, like, game-breaker potential here that Denver could maybe find themselves falling in love with on day 2. He is the, I want to say, 4th-ranked running back, if I saw their stuff right. Yeah, 4th-ranked running back. I don't think there's going to be... I think at most you're going to see maybe 2 running backs go in the first, maybe 3. And it's just going to depend. And again, Dylan Sampson could fly up draft boards during like combine season and stuff. Because again, that 4.3 speed will get you far in NFL draft shit. And so when you look at this guy, I think he's an interesting guy, a versatile guy that Denver could actually use really well. Almost be kind of your, I don't want to say Alvin Kamara type guy, but could maybe be a snag there on day 2. Again, where things stand right now, and again, you just take this with a grain of salt. I am not a draft pundit, okay? Okay. I really like the proposition to Dylan Sampson. I think Denver's backfield does need a little more speed, although I guarantee that he's a guy that teams are once again going to want to try and get to bulk up a little bit to like 210, just because of the nature of the game. Because if you can get him to bulk up to 210 and still keep him borderline 4.3, low 4.4 speeds, I think that's an absolute win for whatever team gets him. They like his role as a workhorse back, apparently, and so we'll have to see what comes of that. But he's 20 years old. He is absolutely... He's fucking younger than me! He's younger than me! But no, he's a guy that I think that he could absolutely fly up draft boards come pro day, combine, that sort of season. And now our last rookie running back, and this is going to be a bit of a deep cut guy. Okay, bit of a deep cut guy. But let me introduce you to Kalel Mullings from Michigan. He's a 6'2", 233 guy who seems like an absolute bruiser from everything I'm hearing. Now, what do they love about the former linebacker turned running back? Well, they love his height, of course, 6'2". They love his weight, 233. They don't love his 40 time, a 2.6 or a 4.62. God, could you imagine a guy running a 2-second 40? No, that'd be a cheat code. Ban his ass. But no, they don't love his 40 time and his overall speed. So what do they like about this guy? He's got exceptional size. I would say size comp. Size comp is probably close to someone like a Derrick Henry at this point. Again, size comp. But he's a powerful runner. So again, goal line, short yardage. If Denver needs a guy for that, absolutely. They could find him later on in the draft. Probably somewhere in day 3, probably around 4 pick if I really had to guess. But they like his vision and patience. That, like I said, the experience as a linebacker translates to above average skills. He's a versatile guy you could plug in on special teams because, again, linebacker. He can probably go hit a motherfucker. They don't like his limited experience, so they're saying he could have a bit of a learning curve. He's not a natural receiver, which is okay. That's fine. And then they say he needs to refine his pass protection, which would be against more like crazy, like some Steve Spagnuolo type shit, blitz packages. But I'm thinking here, like, he is part of a really deep, talented running back class here. So if you're not in a position to get any of the previous guys we've talked about, I think he is a very intriguing option that you could plug in as an absolute bruiser probably later on in the draft and be able to be happy with the guy that you snag, because there could be some upside here in guys that or in this type of guy, because again, he is big. He can fall forward. He can lower his shoulder, fall forward, and he's probably got 3 or 4 yards. So I think to start things out, he would definitely be more of like a goal line, short yardage type guy. But I think with what he's got, if he can kind of refine his skills here, I think he could work pretty good in a Sean Payton offense, although I think his lack of receiving ability is something that would kind of peeve him a little bit. And with that being said, those are all of the rookie running backs I wanted to propose. I know an obvious one was Scatabo. I'm not going to go there right now, okay? Okay, now who are the 2 free agent guys that I think could be interesting additions to the Denver Broncos? Let's find out. All right, now the first guy we're going to look at, and we're going to kind of just breeze over these guys, and one is going to be a guy that I think could come make an impact. The other is a guy that would be a little bit of a salvage project, and I'm sure I just gave it away who the second guy is. But first, we're going to look at Rico Dowdle. 235 carries for the Dallas Cowboys this season, totaling 1,079 yards, 4.6 yards a pop. I think he's definitely a guy that would be more of a between the 20s guy. Only scored 2 touchdowns this year. Doesn't really have the size you would like in a goal line back, 6'0", 215. But I think he's got some versatility again. I think he's a little bit of a shifty runner here that can make guys miss. But he's also a half-decent little check down option here. 249 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. So he almost it almost felt like if Jaleel McLaughlin were Denver's main back this year, I guess also if Jaleel McLaughlin were bigger than he was. But really, I don't think Rico Dowdle would be a bad option for Denver. I think he would mesh okay in Sean Payton's offense with the way that he plays, and he has his experience too, so he's a guy that you could definitely bring in. And he should have a lot of juice in him too, because this is only his first real full season of work. He got some carries last year and a little bit, and then ended up missing 21 and barely played at all in 22. So he's a guy that I think you could definitely still get some juice out of. Now with the next guy, I'm not so certain. Now this is just a thought experiment, okay? I'm not saying I want Denver to go out and sign Nick Chubb, okay? That's not what I'm saying. I don't think he is the same running back anymore, especially watching the Browns this year. What I'm saying is that maybe he comes over on a veteran minimum contract and maybe Sean Payton tries to salvage him, if that's the way they go. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying I want them to. I'm just throwing a thought experiment out. We look at Nick Chubb pre-injury, and he's 4 yards away from 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons, all right? Constantly averaging over 5 yards a carry, and he was averaging 6 before he got hurt in 2023. Now, he came back in 2024 off of that devastating ACL injury, or just knee injury in general, played in 8 games, was only averaging 3.3 yards a carry, had 3 touchdowns, and just was not really the same power guy that we saw, and part of that is probably attributed to that knee recovery. He also injured his foot during the year as well, unfortunately, which did land him on injured reserve, hence why he only really played the 8 games, because he missed a little bit of the first half as well. He's not really a receiving guy, but he is definitely a dependable check down guy that you can toss the ball to, get some touchdowns out of. Constantly was in between like 150 to 280 yards-ish during his career, was coming off of his second best receiving season before he got hurt. And so when I look at Nick Chubb, I don't want them to go after him. It's just, like I said, it's just kind of an option I'm going to throw out here because we are exploring options. If he does come over, it's definitely a salvage project because you have the knee injury, you have the foot injury. He's on the wrong side of 20 for a running back in the National Football League. And so if you had juice in him, you're signing him to, like I said, like a 1-year veteran minimum contract. But I just wanted to float the option here a little bit, all right? Now, I would have said Chuba Hubbard in this slot if it weren't for the Panthers fucking extending him. So, fuck you, Carolina, but have fun probably being good here in the next couple of years. Damn. But with all that being said, I would like to thank you all for watching the video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Comment running back if you made it to this part of the video. And with that being said, y'all have a good night. I'ma have a good night. Go Broncos and keep crushing it. Love yous.